A scrawny horse ridiculed and abandoned. No one cared. No one thought it had potential. But one girl with unwavering faith saw something the world overlooked. Could thunder become a legend? This story will make you reflect on the true power of belief and undying love. Before continuing the story, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story. The midday sun blazed down relentlessly, its intense light reflecting off the dusty wooden planks of the stockyard fences. The auction was in full swing, a vibrant display of horses brought in from various ranches across the region. Buyers dressed in wide-brimmed hats and polished leather boots moved deliberately between the pens, their eyes sharp as they evaluated each animal. Some scribbled notes in small notebooks, while others whispered quietly, gesturing toward the horses they hoped to acquire. The air buzzed with chatter, mixed with the occasional restless whinnies of horses and the clattering of chains. When a prized horse entered the exhibition area, the noise faded, replaced by a taut silence as all eyes focused on the creature. "Look at that coat," one man whispered. "Powerful legs on that one," another added. Meanwhile, in a quieter, forgotten corner of the yard, there stood a pen so overlooked it seemed almost invisible. Inside, a thin, frail horse stood motionless, its head lowered, its dull coat covered in dust, ribs sharply visible, and its weak leg barely able to hold its weight. Most men walked past without sparing a glance, though a few sneered under their breath. "That one's a lost cause," a man remarked dismissively, shaking his head. "Wouldn't even pull a cart. Probably brought here out of pity," another said with a cruel laugh. "Better off sent straight to the slaughterhouse." The horse remained still, its sunken eyes showing no fear, only a quiet acceptance, as though it had long since gotten used to being ignored, unseen and unloved. Through the crowd, a young woman moved forward with determined steps. Emily, her chestnut hair tied in a practical braid, wore a simple white shirt, dirt smudged from the day's work, faded jeans and worn riding boots that had clearly seen better days. Over her shoulder hung a small leather pouch containing the savings she had earned from long hours on her family's ranch. Her sharp, clear eyes scanned the horses on display, pausing briefly on the more majestic ones, but none captured her attention for long. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. "Never judge a horse by its appearance. Look deeper, beyond what the eyes can see." As she moved toward the forgotten corner, her pace slowed. Her gaze settled on the neglected horse, and something about its stillness, its quiet acceptance of being ignored, struck a chord deep within her. She approached the pen, tuning out the mocking remarks of those around her. "What are you doing here, boy?" she murmured softly, placing her hands gently on the rough wooden fence. The horse barely raised its head, just enough for their eyes to meet. For a moment, an unexpected weight settled in Emily's chest. What she saw in those eyes wasn't just sadness. It was something more profound, resignation mingled with a faint, hidden desire to be seen. "What's caught your eye about that bag of bones?" an older man asked mockingly, moving closer. "That's none of your concern," Emily replied, her gaze never leaving the horse. Slowly, she extended her hand. The horse tensed at first, but sensing no threat from her gentle gesture, it slowly moved its nose toward her fingers. The touch was fleeting, but it was enough for Emily to make up her mind. When the auctioneer announced the horse, his voice lacked the enthusiasm he'd shown for the others. It was almost apologetic. "Well, folks, here we have a young horse in need of some care. Maybe someone can find a use for him." The crowd fell silent. Not a single hand went up. Quiet chuckles rippled through the yard as a few heads turned away, dismissing the very idea of bidding. "I'll take him," Emily said, her voice cutting through the stillness. The declaration landed like a thunderclap, drawing startled stares and incredulous laughter. "You've got to be kidding," a man scoffed. "What are you going to do with that animal? He's nothing but trouble." Emily ignored the whispers and mocking glances as she walked straight to the auctioneer. "What's the price?" she asked firmly. The man looked at her with surprise, as though the idea of someone wanting the horse was incomprehensible. "Not much," he replied, shrugging. "Pay the minimum, and it's yours." Without hesitation, Emily handed over the bills, her hands steady despite the laughter and murmurs surrounding her. "Sold," the auctioneer announced with evident relief, closing the deal. Taking hold of the horse's lead rope, she turned to him and spoke softly. "From now on, I'll call you Thunder," she said, gently running her hand along the horse's muzzle. "Mr. Atworry boy, no one's going to reject you again." As they walked away from the chaotic auction, the voices of skeptics trailed after her. "That girl has no idea what she's doing. She's going to regret it." Emily didn't glance back. Walking beside Thunder, she felt a mix of uncertainty and determination swirling within her. She didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. She had seen something in this horse that others hadn't, and she wasn't about to give up. For hours, Emily and Thunder traveled along a dusty trail that wound its way to her family's ranch. Each step seemed to test Thunder's strength, his legs trembling as though they were about to give out. Worried, Emily stopped several times to let him rest. Every glance at the worn-out horse only strengthened her resolve. "Take it easy, boy," she whispered soothingly, stroking his sweat-drenched neck. "We're almost there. I promise you'll never go through anything like this again." The path was solitary, bordered by fields of dry grass and wind-stirred shrubs. Her body was weary, but her mind churned with thoughts of what she'd done. She knew she'd taken a huge gamble. Most of her savings had gone into a horse that everyone else dismissed as worthless. The ridicule at the auction echoed in her mind. Those skeptical murmurs, the disbelief in their eyes, the outright derision. He's a lost cause. But there was something about Thunder she couldn't ignore. Maybe it was the look in his eyes or a deeper, inexplicable sense that their paths were meant to cross. Emily had always believed that, like people, horses had their own essence, and sometimes what seemed broken just needed someone to believe in it. By the time they reached Silver Creek Ranch, the sun was sinking behind the hills, painting the landscape in hues of gold and orange. Her home stood ahead, a modest but welcoming wooden structure with a small stable and a corral nearby. On the porch, her grandfather Jack sat sharpening an old tool. His hair was white, his hands weathered by years of hard labor. When he saw Emily approaching with Thunder, he set the tool aside and narrowed his eyes, watching in silence. Finally, he stood, resting his hands on his knees. "What's with the horse?" he asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. "He's mine, Grandpa," Emily said as she stopped in front of the house. Her words were confident, but there was a faint note of nervousness in her voice. She knew Jack wasn't one to pass quick judgment, but he never shied away from speaking hard truths. Jack walked over slowly, scrutinizing the horse with a practiced eye. He circled Thunder, examining his legs, coat, and posture. The horse barely lifted his head, utterly drained from the journey. "Skin and bones," Jack muttered, shaking his head. "Looks like he hasn't had a decent meal in months." Emily pressed her lips together, but held his gaze. "I know, Grandpa, but I think he can recover. He just needs time, care, and someone to believe in him." Jack raised an eyebrow, folding his arms across his chest. "Time and care? Do you even know what you're saying, girl? A horse in this state doesn't just need food and rest. It's going to take a lot of work, and even then you can't always count on them bouncing back." "I'm willing to try," Emily said without hesitation. For a moment, Jack studied her in silence. Then with a faint sigh, he nodded. "Well, if you're so sure, go ahead. But he's your responsibility. You'll feed him, train him, and prove he's worth the effort." A warm smile spread across Emily's face, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Grandpa," she said softly. "Thanks, Grandpa. I won't let you down." Jack pointed toward the stable. "Put him in the small paddock for now. Tomorrow we'll figure something out." Emily led Thunder to the corral, where she had hurriedly prepared a makeshift shelter for him. Untying the rope that held him, she let him roam free. The horse didn't move right away. Instead, he turned his head, his deep, dark eyes locking onto Emily's face, as though trying to decipher what was happening. She crouched down, pulling out a bucket of fresh water she'd prepared earlier, and placed it before him. "Here you go, boy. You've earned this." Thunder drank eagerly, his tense body loosening with each gulp. Afterward, Emily brought him some hay, sitting cross-legged on the ground to watch him eat. It was only then that she noticed how thin he truly was, his ribs sharply visible beneath his dull coat. But there was something else, something the others had overlooked. Despite his frailty, the way Thunder held his head high and scanned his surroundings spoke of a quiet resilience that had not been extinguished. When her grandfather returned later to check on them, he found Emily fast asleep against the fence, her body curled up at its base. Thunder stood nearby, his ears tilted slightly forward as if standing guard over her rest. Jack allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "Maybe you're right about him, girl," he murmured softly before turning back toward the house. That night, under a canopy of stars, a bond of trust and hope began to form between Emily and Thunder. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but what they shared, an unshakable belief in what they could become together, was stronger than any doubt or derision from others. The first few weeks at Silver Creek Ranch were far more demanding than Emily had imagined. Thunder arrived in such a pitiful state that each day became a battle, not just to rebuild his strength, but to earn his trust. Though he now had ample food and water, at first he hardly touched his meals as though he'd grown accustomed to scarcity. Emily's morning started early. She would inspect the hay, carefully mixing in supplements to ensure he regained the nutrients he desperately needed. Often she'd spend hours sitting beside him, her voice low and soothing as she spoke. Thunder would watch her with wary curiosity, his eyes flickering between hesitation and intrigue. "Take it easy, boy. You're not in competition anymore. This is your time, and we're going to make the most of it," she reassured him. The first real test came just days later. One morning, Emily decided to take Thunder to the main paddock, hoping the open space would encourage him to stretch his legs. But as she gently tugged the lead rope toward the gate, Thunder froze. His entire body went rigid, and his eyes brimmed with a terror Emily had never seen before. "It's okay, easy now," she murmured, holding the rope firmly but without pulling. She knew forcing him would only deepen his fear. From the fence, Jack watched silently, leaning on the walking stick he used to navigate Silver Creek Ranch. After a long moment, he spoke. "That horse is broken inside," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of experience. It wasn't a harsh judgment, but a simple truth stated plainly. His eyes don't lie. Someone hurt him, and now he thinks every step might lead to a trap. "Then we'll fix him, Grandpa," Emily replied, her gaze never leaving Thunder. "But we'll do it his way, not ours." That day, she didn't push him any further. Instead, Emily sat down on the ground near the gate, letting the rope slacken in the dirt. Thunder stood still, watching her, tense and unyielding at first. But as the hours passed, the tension in his frame began to ease. The only sounds were the rustling of the wind and the occasional chirping of birds, a peaceful rhythm that seemed to calm them both. The next day they tried again, and the day after that. Each hesitant step Thunder took toward the paddock became a small victory for Emily. Though progress came slowly, she celebrated every moment as though it were a grand achievement. When at last Thunder crossed the threshold of the gate, a swell of emotion rose in Emily's chest. She smiled, her voice warm and soft as she stroked his neck. "I knew you could do it," she said. Building Thunder's physical strength proved just as challenging. Barely strong enough to trot, he tired quickly during their sessions. Emily crafted a careful routine, introducing him to gradual exercises designed to rebuild his endurance over time. In the beginning, Emily simply guided Thunder around the corral, leading him with patience and care. She gradually introduced short bursts of running, always mindful not to push him too hard. There were days when progress seemed tangible, and others when fatigue or his lingering insecurities caused setbacks. Yet there was something about Thunder that captivated Emily, a glimmer of determination that refused to be extinguished. Despite his frailty, Thunder never fully gave up. Just when it seemed like he had reached his limit, he would summon the strength to take another step forward. Jack, though skeptical at first, eventually became part of the process. He watched Emily work with Thunder, offering bits of advice from his wealth of experience. "Mr. Atrushium, a horse needs strength not only in his body but in his mind. If he trusts you, he'll do things no one thought possible." One afternoon, as Emily worked with Thunder in the corral, Jack approached carrying an old wooden brush. "Need a hand with this?" he asked, extending it toward her. She smiled and accepted it. As Emily stroked Thunder's back, Jack began brushing his neck with steady, deliberate motions. At first, the horse tensed, his muscles rigid beneath the touch of the unfamiliar hand. But slowly he relaxed, the careful rhythm soothing him. "It's funny," Jack said after a while. "This horse reminds me of one I had when I was young. Just as stubborn, just as wary. But once I earned his trust, there wasn't a more loyal horse in the world." Emily looked at him curiously. "What happened to him?" Jack's face softened into a wistful smile. "He became the best horse I ever had, but that was because I gave him time. Never rush a horse, Emily. They'll teach you patience, and if you listen to them, they'll give back more than you could ever imagine." That evening, as Emily sat by the corral watching Thunder, her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. She was certain Thunder had something special, something no one else had noticed. Over the months that followed, her care transformed him. His once thin, fragile frame grew strong and muscular. His dark coat, which had lost its luster, began to shine again. His movements became fluid, graceful, and confident. But what struck Emily most was the change in his eyes. Where once there had been fear and resignation, there was now a spark of trust and determination. She knew there was still a long road ahead, but every moment spent with Thunder reinforced her belief that she had made the right choice at that auction. The challenges were many, but her heart was certain. Thunder was destined for greatness. As Thunder's progress became undeniable, Emily braced herself for the ultimate test. One afternoon, while she was leading him through the corral, Jack appeared with a rope and an old saddle that had been stored away in the barn for years. "It's time for this boy to know what it feels like to carry a rider," he said, a mix of pride and challenge in his tone. Emily glanced at Thunder, who stood calmly, his ears flicking lazily as he grazed. Though they had come so far, riding him would be a delicate step. Any mistake could undo the hard-earned trust between them. "Do you think he's ready?" she asked, stroking Thunder's neck with a tenderness born of months of care. "We won't know until we try," her grandfather replied, resting the saddle on a nearby fence. "But if anyone can do it, it's you. He trusts you." That night, Emily stayed awake longer than usual, her thoughts swirling with plans and anticipation. From the moment she bought Thunder, she had dreamed of entering him in equestrian competitions, not for the glory, but to prove that a horse's origin didn't define its potential. Still, she knew better than to rush the process. At sunrise the next morning, Emily brought Thunder to the corral. The saddle waited in a corner, and she approached the task with the same deliberate care that had guided their journey so far. First, she let him sniff and examine the saddle, giving him time to grow familiar with it. Then, with gentle, steady movements, she placed it on his back without fastening it. Thunder stiffened, craning his neck to inspect the unfamiliar weight on his body. Emily calmed him with soft words, her hand gliding along his flank until he relaxed once more. It was a slow, deliberate process, but each small step strengthened their bond. When the saddle was finally secured, Jack stepped into the corral. "All right, girl, let's see how he handles it when you're up there." Emily nodded, but didn't mount immediately. Instead, she walked alongside Thunder, guiding him around the corral with the saddle already secured. The horse stumbled a few times, his movements awkward and uncertain, but gradually he began to adjust to the unfamiliar weight on his back. Finally, Emily took a deep breath and positioned herself beside the horse. "All right, boy, let's give this a try," she murmured. With careful, deliberate movements, she placed her foot in the stirrup and hoisted herself up, settling into the saddle. Thunder froze instantly, his muscles tensing as though unsure of what to do. Emily remained calm, sitting still and giving him time to adapt. "That's it, boy. You're doing great," she said softly, leaning forward to stroke his neck. Thunder let out a long sigh, and slowly he began to move. His steps were tentative at first, but with each lap around the corral, his confidence seemed to grow. Emily felt a surge of pride and relief as she noticed the horse not only tolerated her presence, but was beginning to move naturally beneath her weight. From his spot by the fence, Jack watched with a satisfied expression. "See what I told you? He wasn't broken. He just needed someone to remind him what he's capable of." That day marked a turning point for both horse and rider. Now that Thunder had accepted the saddle, The next challenge was training him for competitions. Emily understood that show jumping and dressage demanded discipline and precision, but more importantly, an unshakable bond between rider and horse. Weeks later, it was time to venture beyond Silver Creek Ranch and expose Thunder to new environments. Emily decided to take him to the nearby open fields, where he could get used to different terrains and unfamiliar sounds. The first outing was chaotic. The rustling wind through the trees and the crackling branches unsettled him, and at one point he bolted, almost throwing her off. "It's okay," Emily said firmly, holding the reins steady but without pulling. "I've got you." Despite the setbacks, they persevered. Day by day, Thunder grew more confident, learning to trust not only Emily, but also his own instincts. Their connection deepened, becoming unmistakable to anyone who saw them together. From a distance, Jack often watched with a smile tugging at his lips. "That horse doesn't just have strength," he remarked to Emily. The breakthrough came one afternoon while they practiced basic jumps on a small course Emily had set up. The initial attempts were clumsy, with Thunder knocking over the rails more often than not, but with patience and repetition, he began to synchronize his movements. When he finally cleared a jump cleanly, Emily let out a jubilant cheer, throwing her arms around his neck. "You did it, boy. I knew you could." That night, as she sat on the porch gazing at the stars, Emily couldn't help but dream about the future. They were still a long way from major competitions, but for the first time since buying Thunder, she felt he was ready to face the world. The journey hadn't been easy, but they were proving that the past didn't have to dictate the future, and that with enough determination and faith, any obstacle could be overcome. For months, Emily and Thunder trained tirelessly, conquering every challenge that arose. They had started with the basics, but now Thunder leapt gracefully over higher obstacles, executing precise maneuvers that showcased the unique bond between them. Yet for Emily, the true test lay ahead, stepping into the competitive world. One morning, as she reviewed the schedule of local equestrian events, Jack approached with a mug of coffee in hand. "Well, have you decided yet?" Emily sighed, setting the calendar down on the table. "There's a competition in town next month," she admitted, "but I'm not sure we're ready. There's still so much to work on." Jack gave her a steady look. "Listen, kid, nobody starts out perfect. If you keep waiting for the ideal moment, it'll never come. Thunder is ready and so are you. The only thing left is for you to believe it." Bolstered by her grandfather's words, Emily signed up for the local event. It was a small competition meant for beginners, but even so, it was a significant step forward. The thought of competing in front of a crowd of spectators and seasoned riders sent a wave of nerves through Emily. The day of the competition arrived faster than she expected. Emily meticulously prepared Thunder, brushing his coat until it gleamed like polished obsidian under the warm sunlight. She adjusted the saddle with care, making sure everything was just right. "Ready, boy?" she asked softly, locking eyes with him. Thunder responded with a gentle nicker, almost as if he understood the gravity of the moment. When they reached the arena, the energy of the bustling crowd and the constant motion of horses and riders unsettled Thunder. He shifted restlessly, tossing his head and snorting at every new sight or sound. Emily stayed composed, guiding him with steady hands and a calming voice. "Easy now," she murmured, stroking his neck. "We're in this together." As her turn approached, Emily couldn't ignore the glances cast her way, some curious, others skeptical. Many in the crowd recognized the once scrawny and awkward horse from the auction, though he was nearly unrecognizable now. "Isn't that the horse no one wanted to bid on?" a man muttered near the rail. "Yeah, but it looks like they've cleaned him up," another replied, laughing. "Not that it'll make much of a difference." Emily bit back a sharp retort, focusing instead on the faith she had in Thunder. He was so much more than they realized. When her name was finally called, adrenaline surged through her veins. With practiced ease, she mounted Thunder and guided him into the arena. The course was straightforward, but demanded precision and trust. She took a steadying breath, adjusted the reins, and gave Thunder the signal. He started with a measured trot that quickly transitioned into a fluid gallop. The first obstacle, a low bar, was cleared effortlessly. A taller jump came next. Thunder hesitated for a split second, but then surged forward, clearing it with a powerful leap that left the crowd hushed in surprise. Every jump and turn was a testament to their hard work. Though not flawless, their synchronicity was undeniable. For Emily, it wasn't about winning, it was about proving what they'd achieved together. As they crossed the finish line, the arena erupted in applause. Not everyone understood the full extent of their accomplishment, but many saw the dedication and effort it represented. Emily leaned down from the saddle, wrapping her arms around Thunder, her heart swelling with relief, pride, and gratitude. In the resting area, a few competitors came by to congratulate her. One of them, a young man named Lucas, studied Thunder with a mix of surprise and admiration. "Is this the same horse I saw at the auction a few months back?" he asked. Emily nodded, running her hand along Thunder's neck. "It is. His name is Thunder, and he's far more than anyone gave him credit for." Lucas smiled, clearly impressed. "You've done something amazing. That horse has a spark, and so do you." When the results were announced, Emily wasn't expecting to place, but to her astonishment, they were awarded third place. As she accepted the medal, a quiet realization settled over her. This journey had become more than proving Thunder's worth. It was about embracing the bond they'd built and the challenges they'd overcome. That evening, as they returned to Silver Creek Ranch, her grandfather Jack was waiting on the porch. His expression was a mix of pride and tenderness. "I knew you could do it, Nina," he said, "but this is just the beginning." Emily smiled, glancing at Thunder. "I know, Grandpa, but I'm ready for whatever's next, and so is Thunder." With their first competition behind them, the road ahead was clearer than ever, promising new goals and challenges. In the days that followed, a wave of emotions washed over Emily and Thunder. The pride of their accomplishment lingered, but so did the weight of newfound attention they hadn't anticipated. One morning, as she fed Thunder in the barn, Jack appeared, holding a letter in his hand. "It's for you, baby," he said with a knowing look. Seems like someone was impressed. Emily wiped her hands on her apron before opening the envelope. Inside, she found an invitation to participate in a regional jumping and dressage competition. Far more prestigious than the local event she had entered before, attached was a personal note from the event organizer. "We admire your dedication and the undeniable bond you share with your horse. We believe Thunder has remarkable potential, and it would be an honor to have you both among the participants." Emily smiled, though a flicker of nervousness crept into her chest. Competing at such a high level meant going head-to-head with the best, but it was also an opportunity to showcase Thunder's worth. "What do you think, Grandpa?" she asked, holding out the letter. Jack studied it carefully before nodding. "I think this is the next step for you, but be prepared," he added, his voice steady but firm. "The higher you climb, the more critical the eyes watching you will be." With that, their training intensified. This time, Emily hired an experienced trainer to help them refine their technique. Mike, the trainer, was a no-nonsense man, but his fairness and keen eye quickly earned Emily's trust. It didn't take him long to notice something extraordinary about Thunder. "This horse has heart," he remarked one afternoon, watching Thunder soar over a jump. "But he also has a wild spirit, something rare. Just make sure he never loses the trust he has in you. That's what makes him exceptional." The day of the regional event arrived sooner than Emily expected. The venue was intimidating, with grandstands packed with spectators and riders astride impeccably groomed horses. Despite the charged atmosphere, Thunder seemed more assured than in previous competitions. His stance was solid, his ears forward, attuned to Emily's every movement. As they warmed up, Emily noticed a group of men watching them from afar. At first, she ignored them, but soon she recognized one of the men. It was the auctioneer who had sold her Thunder months ago. "That's the horse nobody wanted, right?" one of the men asked, his tone a mix of astonishment and admiration. "Yeah, but it seems the girl saw something the rest of us missed," another replied. "Look what she's done with him." Emily pretended not to hear them, focusing instead on her preparations. But just before she entered the arena, one of the men approached her. He was stocky, with a self-assured air that bordered on arrogance. "Excuse me, miss," he began, his tone casual but confident. "My name is Ryan. I was at the auction where you bought this horse. I'll admit I never imagined he'd come this far. What you've achieved is impressive, Emily nodded curtly, keeping her guard up. Ryan pressed on. In fact, I'd like to make you an offer. I'm prepared to buy this horse from you for a substantial sum. What do you say? Lifting her chin, Emily met his gaze directly. He's not for sale. Thunder isn't just a horse to me. He's my partner. Ryan smirked as if he hadn't heard her. I can offer you more money than you'd ever win at these competitions. Think about what you could accomplish with a new horse, one with a stronger pedigree. Emily tightened her grip on Thunder's reins, feeling him tense slightly beneath her touch, as though he understood the exchange. No matter how much you offer, you can't buy what we've built together. Thunder stays with me. Ryan raised an eyebrow, then shrugged. Suit yourself, but remember my words. A horse like that shouldn't go to waste. Emily watched him walk away, a mix of pride and indignation swelling within her. She was keenly aware of the many eyes on them, some filled with admiration, others eagerly anticipating their failure, but she refused to let it rattle her. When their turn came, Emily and Thunder entered the arena with unwavering resolve. The jumps were higher, and the course was more challenging than anything they had faced before. Yet Emily's faith in her horse never faltered. With every leap and every turn, they proved they were not only up to the task, but capable of excelling beyond expectations. The bond between them was almost tangible, drawing gasps from the crowd. When the final round ended, the audience erupted into applause. Though they didn't claim first place, finishing second in their first regional competition was an incredible achievement. But for Emily, the true victory wasn't the silver trophy. It was the undeniable proof that she and Thunder were an unbreakable team. That evening, as Emily rode back to Silver Creek Ranch, her mind churned with thoughts of what had transpired. She understood that success would inevitably draw more attention, and with it, new challenges. Yet no matter how many offers or criticisms came their way, one truth remained unshakable. Thunder was far more than just a horse. He was her partner, her friend, and together they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. What had started as a personal dream was now evolving into an extraordinary journey, with each competition deepening the bond they shared. Their connection was the cornerstone of their success. Every event brought new lessons and reminded Emily just how far they had come since that day at the auction, when Thunder had been overlooked by everyone. But fame was a double-edged sword. After their win at the regional event, word of the rejected horse-turned champion began to spread through equestrian circles. Some found their story inspiring, while others viewed it with skepticism. One afternoon, as Emily was training in the corral, a sleek black car pulled up to Silver Creek Ranch's entrance, its polished surface starkly out of place amidst the rustic surroundings. From it stepped a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit, his sharp appearance a striking contrast to the dusty ranch. "Emily Martinez?" he asked, his tone firm yet smooth. Emily dismounted Thunder, curiosity sparking in her eyes as she approached the fence. "That's me. How can I help you?" "My name is Matthew Collins," the man replied, producing a business card from his jacket pocket. "I represent one of the most prestigious horse breeding establishments in the country." He extended the card toward her. "I've been following your progress in the competitions, and I must say I'm impressed. Your horse, Thunder, is truly exceptional." Emily accepted the card, though her expression remained cautious. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "We've worked hard to get where we are." "That much is clear," Collins replied with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Which is exactly why I'm here. My client is very interested in acquiring Thunder. He's prepared to offer you a substantial sum, more than any prize you could win in a competition." Emily's chest tightened. The offer wasn't unlike the one she'd received after the regional event, but this time it came wrapped in a professionalism that only added to her discomfort. "He's not for sale," she said firmly, her hand instinctively resting on Thunder's neck. Collins seemed unfazed. "I understand your attachment," he said, his voice laced with the patience of someone used to negotiating. "But I urge you to consider what you could achieve with that money. You could purchase a horse with an impeccable pedigree, one that could elevate you to the pinnacle of this sport." Emily stepped forward, positioning herself between Collins and Thunder, as though shielding her companion from the man's words. "Mr. Collins, I don't think you understand what this horse means to me. He's not just a tool for competition. He's my friend, my partner. Everything we've accomplished, we've done together. No amount of money could ever replace that. For a moment, Colin studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he shrugged, a faint note of condescension in his voice as he said, "It's a pity, but let me make one thing clear. In this world, emotions don't take you far. Greatness comes at a cost, and one day you'll have to decide if you're willing to pay it." With those parting words, he turned and strode back to his car. Emily watched him drive away, anger and determination burning hot in her chest. That evening, as she mucked out the stables, she recounted the encounter to Jack, who listened quietly, leaning on the shovel he'd been using to help her. "Men like that always show up when they see something that shines," he said at last, his voice calm but firm. "But the real question, Emily, is why you're on this path. If it's glory you're after, they might sway you someday. But if it's something more, then no offer will ever make you waver." Emily pondered his words as her gaze drifted to Blaze, resting peacefully in his stall. Her expression softened as memories surfaced. Memories of a time when the world had turned its back on him. Together they had defied the odds, and no price could ever measure up to what they had built. "I'm not in this for the trophies, Grandpa," Emily finally said, her voice steady. "I'm here because I want to prove that courage isn't about what others think, and because Thunder deserves to shine, not for them, but for himself." Jack nodded, a proud smile playing on his face. "Then keep going, girl. But remember, the higher you climb, the harder they'll try to bring you down." Emily knew he was right. With her growing reputation came greater challenges. Yet her resolve was unwavering. She was determined to defend everything they had built, no matter the cost. With that in mind, their training intensified, all in preparation for the upcoming National Show Jumping Championship. It wasn't just another event. It was a chance to face not only the best riders in the country, but also the weight of lingering prejudice and skepticism. To Emily, nothing was more gratifying than proving, again and again, that Thunder was far more than just an overlooked horse. He was a champion, both in body and spirit. The day of the National Show Jumping Championship dawned crisp and electric, the air thick with anticipation. To Emily, this wasn't merely a competition. It was a stage to prove that she and Thunder belonged among the elite. The venue was a sight to behold, massive grandstands filled with spectators, the hum of voices mingling with the occasional neigh of a horse. In the warm-up ring, pristine horses and seasoned riders exuded confidence as they prepared. "Ready for this, girl?" Jack asked, his hand firm on Emily's shoulder as they gazed at the course from afar. She took a deep breath and glanced at Thunder. Despite the commotion around them, he stood calm, alert, as though he understood the gravity of the moment. "We're ready, Grandpa. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." The competition was divided into two stages, an initial course with medium-height jumps and a second, far more technical round. Only the best would advance, and Emily knew that perfection was her only option. When her number was called, whispers rippled through the crowd. Many had heard of Emily and Thunder, but others remained doubtful. A horse discarded at auction couldn't possibly rival those bred specifically for this sport. Emily mounted with poise, adjusting the reins as she guided Thunder toward the arena. The crowd fell silent as they positioned themselves at the starting line. "Let's do this, boy. It's our moment," she murmured, her hand grazing Thunder's neck in encouragement. The whistle blew, and Thunder launched forward in a smooth gallop. The first challenge was a towering triple jump. With effortless power, Thunder cleared it, drawing scattered applause from the stands. Obstacle after obstacle fell behind them as the pair displayed a seamless blend of skill and determination. Each turn, every jump was a testament to their relentless training and unshakable bond. When they crossed the finish line without a single fault, the crowd erupted into cheers. Number 47, Emily Martinez and her horse Thunder qualify for the second round with an outstanding time, the announcer declared. Emily exhaled deeply, a grin spreading across her face as she leaned down to pat Thunder. "We did it, boy. We really did it." In the resting area, she felt the weight of mixed gazes from her competitors, some filled with admiration, others with doubt. A few came forward to offer congratulations, While others lingered at a distance, skepticism still etched into their faces. Among those who approached was Lucas, a young rider she had met at a regional competition. "I knew you had something special, but that was incredible," he said, his smile genuine. "Thanks, Lucas. It's Thunder who deserves the credit," Emily replied modestly, scratching the horse behind his ears. The second round promised to be far more challenging: tight turns, intricate combinations, and imposing obstacles. Emily watched the other riders as they took their turns, each showcasing remarkable skill and precision. When her number was called, she felt the weight of every pair of eyes, judges, spectators, and competitors alike, fixed on her. This time, the pressure was palpable, but she grounded herself in what truly mattered: her connection with Thunder. The second course was a monumental test of their abilities. At the third obstacle, a complex zigzag pattern, Thunder hesitated for a moment, but with Emily's steady guidance, he regained his rhythm and cleared it flawlessly. Emily could feel her heart racing as they approached the final challenge, a towering double jump designed to intimidate even the most seasoned riders. Thunder galloped forward with unwavering determination, and with a powerful leap, they soared through the air, landing gracefully on the other side without grazing a single bar. The crowd erupted in applause. Emily leaned down, whispering words of gratitude to Thunder as the announcer declared their time, the second fastest in the entire competition. When the awards ceremony came, Emily and Thunder stood proudly on the podium to receive their silver medal. Though it wasn't gold to Emily, the achievement held far greater meaning. From the stands, Jack beamed with pride, while Lucas clapped enthusiastically among the crowd. Scanning the faces around her, Emily also spotted some familiar ones: Ryan and Collins watching from afar, their expressions a mix of astonishment and envy. Clutching the medal tightly in her hands, Emily murmured, "This is just the beginning, Thunder. We'll go even further together." That night, back at Silver Creek Ranch, Emily and Jack celebrated quietly, sitting on the porch and gazing at the stars. For Emily, success wasn't measured in trophies or medals, but in the unbreakable bond she shared with Thunder, a connection that no accolade could surpass. Months after the national championship, Emily and Thunder had become prominent names in the equestrian circuit. Their story resonated deeply, inspiring many, especially those who believed in second chances. But with fame came an onslaught of attention, threatening to test everything Emily and Thunder had built together. One crisp morning, as Emily trained at Silver Creek Ranch, Jack came rushing out of the house, his face lined with worry. In his hand, he carried a newspaper. "Emily, you need to see this," he said, handing it to her. She stopped riding and took the paper, her eyes landing on the front page. There was a photo of her and Thunder from their last championship, accompanied by a bold headline: "The rejected horse, the unlikely champion everyone wants to buy." The article recounted their rise in the competitive world, but also detailed Thunder's near dismissal at the auction where no one saw his worth. It described how, now, breeders and wealthy buyers were offering outrageous sums to acquire him. "They can't be serious," Emily muttered, her irritation mounting. "Believe it," Jack replied gravely. "Ever since that silver medal, everyone's got their eyes on you and Thunder." Before she could respond, a sleek black car pulled up to Silver Creek Ranch entrance. 3 sharply dressed men stepped out, and Emily immediately recognized one of them: Ryan, the man who had tried to buy Thunder at the regional championship. "What do they want now?" Emily whispered under her breath as Jack approached the men. "Stay calm, girl," her grandfather said gently. "Hear them out, but remember who you are and why you do this." Jack opened the gate to let the men in, and Ryan wasted no time getting to the point. "Miss Martinez, we've met before, but today I bring a formal proposal. My client is prepared to offer $5 million for your horse. This includes a contract for you to train at our state-of-the-art facility." Emily crossed her arms, her expression resolute. "I've told you before, Thunder is not for sale, not for $5 million, not for 10. No amount of money will change my mind." Ryan smirked as though unused to having his offers refused. "Miss Martinez, this isn't just business. It's an opportunity for you. Imagine training other horses, competing on the international stage, Why limit yourself to just one horse? Emily's blood boiled as she stepped forward, her voice firm. Do you know what that horse means to me? When everyone else dismissed him, I saw him for who he truly was. A fighter, a champion. Every achievement I've earned has been with him, not because of his pedigree, but because of his heart, and that's something you'll never understand. She gestured toward Thunder, who stood calmly in the corral, his dark eyes watching the exchange, as if he too understood the weight of the moment. The men exchanged glances, surprised by the firmness of her response. Ryan made one last attempt to sway her. We understand your emotional attachment, but feelings don't win competitions, miss. Think about it. 5 million. That's more money than you'll ever see in your entire life. Emily took a deep breath, striving to keep her composure. Finally, she lifted her chin and locked eyes with Ryan. Thunder is priceless. He's my partner, my family, and I will never betray him for money. So if you're done trying to convince me, I'd appreciate it if you left. Ryan's expression darkened, but he knew he had nothing left to say. Without another word, he and his companions returned to their car and drove off. As the sound of the engine faded into the distance, Jack let out a hearty laugh. That'll give them something to think about. I doubt they'll bother you again. Emily smiled, though her chest still hummed with adrenaline. She watched as Thunder galloped freely across the paddock, his mane catching the breeze. Walking over to him, she rested her forehead against his and closed her eyes. I promise to protect you, remember? No matter what happens, we'll always be together. Thunder let out a soft snort, as if he understood every word. That evening, as the sun set over Silver Creek Ranch, Emily sat beside Jack on the porch. Do you think I made the right decision? She asked, gazing out at the horizon. The old man adjusted his hat before answering. The right decision isn't always the easiest or the most lucrative, but if you can go to bed knowing you didn't betray what you love, then yes, you made the right choice. Emily nodded quietly. In her heart, she knew Thunder's true worth wasn't in what others were willing to pay for him, but in everything they had built together. Years passed, but the bond between Emily and Thunder remained unbreakable. Though they didn't win every championship they entered, they achieved something far greater, inspiring others to see potential where no one else could. Thunder became a legend, not just for his victories on the track, but for his story of resilience. Whenever Emily recounted how she had bought him at an auction where no one else saw his value, the faces of those listening lit up with wonder and admiration. One day after a peaceful morning on Silver Creek Ranch, Jack approached her with an old notebook in his hands. Emily, brushing Thunder under the warm sun, looked at him with curiosity. "What's that, Grandpa?" she asked, setting the brush aside. "It's something you should start writing in," he replied, handing her the notebook. "Your story. And Thunder's. Not to boast, but so others can understand what it means to never give up." Emily opened the notebook and smiled at the blank pages. "Do you really think anyone would want to read it?" Jack looked at her with a proud smile. "Believe me, girl, this story has the power to change lives." Inspired by her grandfather's words, Emily began writing at night while Thunder rested in his stall. She reflected on every moment of their journey together, the auction, the tough training sessions, the championships, and the times when they were on the brink of giving up. But she also wrote about Thunder's resilience, his unwavering loyalty, and how he taught her that a champion's true worth isn't defined by their pedigree, but by their heart. When the notebook was full, Emily made the decision to publish it as a book titled Thunder, The Story of the Horse Nobody Wanted. The book became a sensation, touching not just horse enthusiasts, but anyone who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. Meanwhile, Thunder spent his days in peaceful retirement at Silver Creek Ranch. Though he no longer competed, he still trotted with energy, played in the paddock, and reveled in the love of children who came by to learn about horse care. One day, a young boy approached Emily hesitantly, his steps tentative but filled with wonder. "Is it true that this is the horse from the book?" he asked, pointing at Thunder, who was grazing peacefully under the shade of a large oak tree. "It's him," Emily replied with a warm smile. "And no one wanted him." The boy's eyes widened, a mix of amazement and disbelief. Emily knelt down to meet his gaze. No one wanted him at first, she said softly, but he was always special. He just needed someone to believe in him. The boy stared at Thunder in awe for a moment before running over to him, giggling as he gently stroked the horse's smooth, shiny coat. That evening, as Emily sat on the porch gazing at the stars scattered across the vast sky, Jack, older now, moving more slowly, joined her with a contented sigh. "Do you realize what you've accomplished, girl?" he asked, his voice filled with both pride and admiration. "Thunder didn't just change your life, he changed the lives of so many others. That horse wasn't just a champion, he became a symbol of hope." Emily's gaze wandered over to the corral, where Thunder lay resting under the same vast sky. "He taught me everything, Grandpa," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't even know if I saved him or if it was the other way around." Jack chuckled softly, his expression wise. "Maybe it was a little of both," he said. That night, as Emily went to bed, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing she had kept her promise to Thunder from the very beginning, to protect him, care for him, and show the world his true worth. And so, the story of a horse once rejected at an auction transformed into a legend, not just in the competitive world, but in the hearts of everyone who had ever dared to believe in overcoming the impossible. If you've made it to the end of this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Wow, what an incredible journey, right? Even though this tale of Emily and Thunder is fictional, it's filled with lessons that resonate deeply with real life. Stories like this remind us about the power of belief, not just in others, but in ourselves. Emily saw something in Thunder that no one else did, and because of her unwavering faith, the impossible became extraordinary. This story also teaches us about resilience. Thunder's journey, from being overlooked and discarded to becoming a champion, mirrors the struggles that so many of us face. Whether it's being underestimated, facing rejection, or feeling like the odds are against us, the message is clear. With patience, hard work, and the right support, we can overcome anything. On a deeper level, this story beautifully highlights the bond between humans and animals. It's not just about care and training, it's about mutual trust, love, and understanding. Thunder wasn't just a horse to Emily, he was her partner, her friend. Together they created something truly inspiring. But perhaps the most important takeaway is that value isn't always visible at first glance. So often we judge others or even ourselves based on appearances or circumstances. Emily reminds us that everyone and everything has potential waiting to be unlocked. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this story resonated most with you? The story of Thunder and Emily is a living testament to the power of belief and love, showing how they can turn the impossible into reality. From a discarded, deemed worthless horse, Thunder rose to become a legend, not just on the racetrack, but in the hearts of those who believe in change, in the hidden value within us all. Emily, unwavering in her determination, gave Thunder a chance no one else would, and together they created a story full of inspiration, a lesson in persistence, love, and a belief that never stops. We often judge things or people too quickly based on appearances, but Thunder's story reminds us that everything has unique value, and all it takes is one person to believe for everything to change. This story is a source of motivation for anyone who feels overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed in life. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that belief and love can change lives, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this story with your loved ones. We'll continue bringing you inspiring tales and valuable lessons from life. Join us on this journey of discovery and don't miss any future videos. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.